try to qualify the statements out of this, which is a true statement, instant answer. Do you think iodide ions from the plasma enter into the follicle cell by active or passive diffusion? T3 and T4 is bound to the receptors in the nuclei or cytoplasm. Thyroxine, once synthesized, is coupled to thyroglobulin until it is released. Is it the function of the thyroglobulin? And do you think the triiodothyronine, a greater proportion of it is formed when the iodine is deficient? Is it the reason for the goiter and other things? Or do you think iodine deficiency leads to lesser amount of triiodothyronine formation? And lastly, does thyroid hormone has any effect on the beta receptors? These are all important issues for the exam. So please remember, thyroid hormones increase the beta receptors on the myocardium, and once synthesized it is coupled to the thyroglobulin until it is released, and as you rightly said, T3 and T4 binds to the receptors in the nuclei is what it remembered, and it requires an active diffusion, not a passive diffusion. And in the case of iodine deficiency, the synthesis of T3 become diminished, not increased. That is what you need to fundamentally remember. Let's go to the next question. When do you think the blood flow is maximum in the heart, doctor? It is during the diastole. Now, a similar question in this line you need to know is about the HOCM, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. Now, you try to qualify this statement, which is the one which is a wrong thing out of this, doctor? One confident answer? Yes. Basically, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. It is obstructive. When it is obstructive, what happens, doctor? The systolic ejection time becomes prolonged. It won't be decreased. So that is the reason there will be a longer systolic ejection time, not a shorter one. Otherwise, the other things are all correct. Left ventricle is hypertrophied, abnormal intramyocardial coronary circulation will be there, increased wall tension will be there, and altered metabolism of the LV muscle will be there is what need to be remembered. So what is the cause for the angina that you see in the case of the hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, doctor? It is because of three important reasons. Number one, at the time of the diastole, the heart of a HOCM patient cannot relax normally. That is one reason. Number two, that's the reason the diastolic filling of the coronaries become impaired. And there will be a marked increased oxygen demand by the myocardium because of the ventricular hypertrophy. They also have a metabolic defect in their heart. The defect lies with the abnormal calcium kinetics. So that is the reason the hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy is one favorite topic which you should not forget. Another question I want to ask you. Any angina fundamentally relieves by giving the nitrate, which angina worsens? It is the HOCM worsens. What is the reason, doctor? Nitrates basically decrease the ventricular volume, and they will increase the amount of obstruction that is there at the level of the outflow tract of the left ventricle, and they will increase the chamber pressures and worsen the whole scenario of angina in the case of the HOCM. Other than HOCM, in all other conditions, angina relieves by giving nitrates, whereas HOCM angina worsens by giving the nitrates, which is a vasodilator, is what I want to underscore to all of you. Now let's go to the next question. Which is the condition where you can find positive FeCl2 reaction? In the case of phenylketonuria, is there any name given for that? Guthrie's test is related to this only, or it's not related? Okay. So what is maple syrup urine disease? So please remember, it is aminoacidopathy where the catabolic pathway of the branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, valine is basically impaired in this condition. And in this condition, how do you detect it? In urine, what do you find in the case of the maple syrup urine disease? You find lactate, pyruvate, alpha-ketoglutarate and alpha-hydroxy isovalerate. All these things are found in the urine is what need to be remembered. Now, you need to pick up what is the wrong statement. Only one wrong statement is there out of this 9 statements of phenylketonuria, which is a favorite question for the examiner. Do you think there is a mental deficiency in phenylketonuria? Very much. Is it phenyl hydroxylase deficiency? That is also true. Is a genetic defect is there in the short arm of the 12? Okay, it is a long arm of the 12. So that is one thing that is what examiner is interested. And it is also pteridine reductase deficiency, biopterin deficiency, These two things are also associated with the phenylketonuria is what need to be basically remembered. So in the tomorrow's exam, if only phenyl hydroxylase is given and in addition to that if you also find the bioterin and pteridine reductase, don't think they are reduced. In certain varieties of phenylketonuria even they are also reduced is what need to be remembered. And the diet restriction can treat the mental deficiency, and you find a high phenylalanine not only in the blood but also in the urine and also the tissues is what need to be remembered. And it leads to eczema, mousy odor, hypopigmentation, seizures and mental retardation. All these things can be certain important complications is what need to be remembered. Now let's go to the next question. Which pathway produces DNA and RNA? So now you are quite sure, doctor. Glycolysis, gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis and HMP shunt, beta oxidation of fatty acids and fatty acid synthesis. Out of these 7 chains, one question is invariably going to come. You have to revise before you go to exam, okay? So please remember, so totally how many ATPs are produced in palmitic acid metabolism, doctor, that the other day we discussed? 131 or 129 or 130? So in exam, it should not trickle you, okay? At least in the first step, ATP becomes AMP or ADP in the beta oxidation. ATP becomes AMP, okay? So please revise those topics, doctor. So it is the HMP shunt is what need to be remembered. Now, if you take the pentose phosphate pathway, it does not generate any ATP. What it generates is NADPH. You have NADH, you have NADPH, then why two things are given by the God, doctor? In all the catabolic pathways, the reducing equivalent which is used is NADH. In all the anabolic pathways, the reducing equivalent used is NADPH. That's what you need to remember. For example, beta oxidation of the fatty acids. If at all NAD is involved, what type NAD? NADP or NAD? NADH, because it is basically a catabolic pathway. So that's what need to be remembered. So this NADPH which is produced by the pentose phosphate pathway is used for the fatty acid biosynthesis, and the steroid biosynthesis is what need to be remembered. In addition to that, it also gives rise to the ribose nucleotides which will be used for the nucleotide and the nucleic acid synthesis. Now quickly tell me, doctor, a favorite question for the examiner, which tissues which are involved in the steroidogenesis will be very rich in the presence of HMP pathway? Liver, adipose tissue, adrenal cortex, testis and lactating mammary gland, high level of PPP enzymes will be there is what need to be remembered. Why does RBCs require a lot of PPP? The reason is the erythrocytes generate a lot of NADPH which will be used in reduction of the glutathione. So that is the reason the cell membrane of the RBC is protected only if the glutathione is in a reduced state. For doing that you require the NADPH. That is the reason the PPP is very abundant in the erythrocytes is what need to be remembered. So erythrocytes don't have citric acid cycle because there is no mitochondria. Erythrocytes solely depend upon glycolysis, and erythrocytes have a rich PPP. So these 3 important pearls of pearls you should not forget, doctor. Now in the pentose phosphate pathway, what is the oxidative stage? Glucose 6-phosphate becomes 6-phosphogluconate by glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Then the deficiency of this glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is basically called as, do you think von Gerke is what? Yes? Is it associated with that? Confident answer please. Yes. So that is the reason you need to remember glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is the first step. Then comes gluconolactonase which converts it into 6-phosphogluconate, and that becomes ribulose 5-phosphate. So the whole thing is basically the oxidative phase of the pentose phosphate pathway. Then you have a non-oxidative stage of the pentose phosphate pathway, and this ribulose 5-phosphate is the first step in that. So ribulose 5-phosphate becomes xylulose and ribose 5-phosphate, and transketolase will cause the interconversion between these two. Transketolase, what is the vitamin which is a coenzyme, doctor? Thymine. So if thymine is not there, PPP cannot happen is what need to be remembered. Then it becomes sedheptilose and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, and then finally erythrose 4-phosphate, and this once more is broken down into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate. So this whole story of the non-oxidative part of the pentose phosphate pathway need to be remembered. Let's go to the next question. Lipotrophic factor is typically seen in the liver, which is the one? It is choline, and choline is synthesized by using the labile methyl groups which are donated basically by the methionine. That's the reason deficiency of methionine causes deficiency of choline, leads to the fatty liver is what need to be remembered. Now urea, once more you can see, we discussed Ames paper, PGI paper and the last AP paper. Every paper contains one urea cycle. Without urea there is no paper. So that is the final conclusion. You know what is the research? One frog with 4 legs was there and it was tapped, it jumped. Then one leg was cut and once more tapped, it could not jump that much. Third leg was also cut and once more tapped, it could not jump further. Then what is your final conclusion, doctor? If you cut the legs of the frog, it becomes deaf. Is it like that? Because you tapped and it is not able to catch up. So also urea cycle is the part of every paper, doctor, because we are finding it in every paper. I can bet it. Tomorrow's AP entrance also, while you are answering that what is the rate limiting enzyme in the urea cycle, you will remember me. You can remember it. Okay. So urea, how is it basically converted in the brain? Ammonia traverses the blood-brain barrier and it is converted into glutamate with the help of the glutamate dehydrogenase. And whenever this excess glutamate is formed from the ammonia, then there is a depletion of the alpha ketoglutarate. And because this alpha ketoglutarate is depleted, oxaloacetate also will be falling down in the citric acid cycle. If it falls, then the citric acid cycle cannot go further. If it can't go further, then the ATPs cannot be generated if citric acid cycle is not there. If that cannot happen, then the neural cell death will occur. So that is how the ammonia, by depleting the alpha ketoglutarate and oxaloacetate, which are the TCA cycle intermediates, will lead to the development of the neurotoxicity is what need to be basically remembered. And in the brain, typically the glutamine synthase reaction is a very important way by which ammonia is converted into glutamine. What is this glutamine synthase reaction, doctor? Glutamate plus ammonia will give rise to glutamine plus ADP plus phosphate. So that is the reason, doctor, in the urea is converted in the brain into glutamine by using the glutamate with the help of the glutamine synthase reaction is what need to be remembered. Now, if a person has got a liver dysfunction, a lot of ammonia is there, all that ammonia is reaching the brain, then what will happen? Then all that ammonia will be converted into glutamine. For doing that, all the glutamate will become depleted. If the glutamate is not there in the brain, then the glutamate, the GABA cannot be produced, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. If that is not produced, then there is a development of all the clinical features of the asterixis and hepatic encephalopathy features, because the GABA depletion is what need to be remembered. And in addition, glutamine is also a very osmotically active substance. It will pull a lot of volume of the fluid from the glial cells, and it will cause a lot of water to get collected in the glial cells that leads to cerebral edema. That is the reason a patient with hyperammonemia will become totally become lethargic and comatose at a point of time. Let's go to the next question. Immunohistochemistry studies are typically carried out for which important substrate, doctor? Keratin. So please remember, keratin, if it is positive by immunohistochemistry, that means to say the malignancy is of epithelial origin. That means it is a carcinoma. Suppose if the desmin is positive in immunochemistry, that means to say it is of muscle cell origin is what need to be remembered.